What's up, YouTube? Sort of a different style video we got going on today. If you don't know, I had a pretty viral tweet, I would say, saying that the Minnesota Vikings are the most complete team in the NFL, and it sort of received a lot of backlash. A lot of people saying, they have a rookie quarterback, all this and that. I'll go ahead and show you guys the tweet here. This is exactly what I said. I think the Vikings are the most complete team in the NFL. You can see it got 95.8K views, so pretty, it's definitely my most viral tweet by far. Make sure to go follow me on Twitter, by the way, if you haven't already. But man, you got a lot of interactions, 76 comments you can see right here. This guy actually agrees with me here, but we'll go ahead and try to find, yeah, right here. What an absurdly stupid take. My response was so stupid, right, that a team that won 14 games and addressed most of the weaknesses on the team can't be the most complete team in the NFL. That was my response. 41 people liked it. Ratioed the hell out of this guy right here. Shout out to Where Your Mama on Twitter. But you got a lot of Vikings fans that really agreed with me, and they, appreciated the fact that I said this. I do want to say, first off, I'm not a Minnesota Vikings fan, and I think a lot of people maybe thought that, especially the people that disagreed with me. I have to say, I have no bias in this. Like I said, I'm not a Vikings fan, so this is just me assessing the teams, assessing the rosters, and seeing what the Vikings' weaknesses were last year. I think they addressed every single one of their weaknesses. When I look at it, offensive line was obviously the biggest issue. If you guys watched last year's playoff wildcard game versus the LA Rams, you could see it was very apparent. And then the secondary, I think they addressed a little bit. There is some concerns for the secondary. That's like one of the main things I'm getting pushback on is their secondary isn't the greatest. But I'll go over that and I'll explain a little bit more and why I have, some more hope than most people do for their secondary. But let's go ahead and try to see. Let's go ahead and try to find exactly this guy right here. This is a big page on Twitter right here. First round mock, 13.7K. He said they don't have a good quarterback. So pretty much what I'm going to be doing is going over everything, addressing all these people. I didn't reply to anybody on here just because I wanted to address it in this video right here. So that is exactly why I'm making this video. But I just wanted to show it if you guys are new and maybe you don't understand the context of what's going on. That's basically what's going on here. Make sure to go follow me on Twitter because, getting some pretty interesting stuff going on Twitter. So make sure, if you're a loyal viewer on here and you don't follow me on Twitter, make sure you guys go follow me on Twitter. I'm super active on it. But anyways, let's get straight into this video. Let me go back to full face cam. Oops, sorry. Let's go straight back to full face cam. Here's what I want to talk about first. Like I said, I just went over the tweet. But I want to talk about the Minnesota Vikings last year because, I think this deserves some context. The Minnesota Vikings went 14-3 last year and lost in the wild card game to the Rams. Like I said, Sam Darnold in that game looked absolutely horrific. I'm a USC fan, so I love my boy Sam Darnold, and I hate to say that about him, but he looked awful, was holding the ball for way too long, but the offensive line did not give him any help at all. That is the main reason they lost that game. I put a lot of the blame on Sam Darnold, but I also put a lot of that damn blame on that horrible, horrible offensive line. But that leads us into our next point. What did they do in the offseason? They absolutely loaded this offensive line. They signed Colts guard Will Fries to a 5-year, $88 million deal, who was the best guard available after Trey Smith from the Kansas City Chiefs got franchise tag. He was definitely the best guard available there. They also signed another Colts offensive lineman in Ryan Kelly. If you guys don't know about the Colts offensive line, they've had one of the better offensive line for the last 3 to 4 years now, honestly. You got Quentin Nelson, obviously had Will Fries and Ryan Kelly, but they're now Minnesota Vikings. Ryan Kelly is a 4-time Pro Bowler in his career. They signed him to a 2-year deal. Absolutely, great. 2 great offensive linemen. And what did they do in the 2025 NFL draft? They signed guard Donovan Jackson from Ohio State. This was sort of a controversial pick, I would say. A lot of people, I'm a big draft guy, so what I've seen from a lot of people is they said this was a bit of a reach. Do I agree? Yes, but they also needed the guard help, and they didn't have a second-round pick. So that's the context behind that pick, I believe. I was projecting in most of my mocks to have the Minnesota Vikings select a safety because Harrison Smith, Vikings legend, by the way, getting up there in age, so I was expecting the Vikings to go safety, maybe sort of replace him. Like I said, he is getting up there in age. But I don't hate the Donovan Jackson pick. I've seen also some people saying they should have drafted a better offensive lineman out of Ohio State, and that is Josh Simmons. I just want to say Josh Simmons is not a guard. He's a tackle. And I believe that's what he's going to be playing for the Kansas City Chiefs. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. Josh Simmons is not a guard, so he doesn't really fit on this team. Why does he not fit on this team? Because they have Christian Darrisaw, and Brian O'Neill. Brian O'Neill, two-time Pro Bowler, was a Pro Bowler last year. Christian Darrisaw had a serious injury. I don't remember what the injury is. I believe it happened earlier on in the season or middle of the season. Sorry for not knowing that. But I know he had a very serious injury. Christian Darrisaw is an absolute stud. He probably would have been a Pro Bowler before the injury, honestly. But what else did they do in the offseason? First off, this offensive line, to me, I think has potential to be the best offensive line in the entire league. I think their absolute floor is a top 5 offensive line in this league. That's how high I am on this offensive line, man. This offensive line, they really, that was their main focal point in the offseason, and they absolutely addressed that. And I can't, it's just insane how much better the Vikings have gotten just from doing that. Like, that was their biggest weakness last year, and they absolutely addressed it. Defensive line. What did they do for the defensive line? They brought in defensive tackle Jonathan Allen on a 3-year deal and brought in defensive tackle Javon Hargrave on a 2-year deal from the San Francisco 49ers. So, this defense was already good last year. Their main issue here is the secondary, and that leads me into the next topic. They re-signed Byron Murphy, a former Arizona Cardinal, to a 3-year deal. Best corner in the room. And then they brought in Isaiah Rodgers, gambling addict, on a 2-year deal. And then they signed probably a bust. I would consider Jeff Okudah a bust on a 1-year deal. But they also have Mekhi Blackmon, and I think a lot of people are truly forgetting that. I'm a USC guy, like I mentioned earlier, and I think this guy has a lot of promise, man. I really do. He's coming off a torn ACL, so we'll see if he can bounce back from that. But I honestly think Mekhi Blackmon could be the DB2 in this room, and I have a lot of high hopes for him. Isaiah Rodgers, I think, would fit in as a DB3. Honestly, I think more people are projecting him to be that DB2 in the room, and I believe that's where he's listed as right now. We'll go over the depth chart later. But Mekhi Blackmon, man, I'm expecting big things from him, and I think a lot of Vikings fans have some optimism about this guy. And we also can't forget about Harrison Smith, the leader of this defense in the secondary. Vikings legend, will be a Hall of Famer, absolutely. But yeah, a lot of people have questions about this secondary, and I would say that's probably the main weakness. I wouldn't even consider it a weakness. I don't think this is as bad of a secondary as people are making it out to be. And there's also rumors, that they might trade for a Jalen Ramsey. That would be a big splash. A more realistic option is Asante Samuel Jr., still a free agent. I could see the Vikings definitely making a move for him, and if they do that, even more depth in the secondary room. I'm just saying on what's going on now, though, and I still don't think this is as bad of a secondary as people are making it out to be. Now we got to go over the offense. They re-signed Aaron Jones to a 2-year deal. They traded for Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason, when Christian McCaffrey went out, this guy was an absolute stud, and now you put him on an even better offensive line. The 49ers offensive line last year was not even that good. So you put him in this offensive line. I think Jordan Mason is going to have a career year, and I have huge hopes for Jordan Mason, honestly. Like, I think this guy is a great running back, and like I said, with this offensive line, I think they're going to be running. I think this is a strong running game, honestly. And I expect Jordan Mason, if you're a fantasy, football guy, definitely select this guy, because this guy is going to, I think he could take over as the RB1. That's how high I am on Jordan Mason this year. Aaron Jones is one of my favorite running backs, honestly, in the league. But Jordan Mason, I think, is that good, and Aaron Jones is getting up there in age. And like I said, Jordan Mason, I'm just expecting really, really big things from this guy. And then also sort of a smaller deal here. They signed Rondale Moore, former Arizona Cardinal, and former Atlanta Falcon, I believe. I believe he had a season-ending injury last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I don't know how many games he actually played for the Falcons. So who knows where he fits. The Vikings did draft Ty Felton out of Maryland in the 3rd round. And they also have Jalen Naylor, so I don't really know how he fits in this offense. I don't even know if he's a wide receiver 3 or 4, honestly. Sort of a weird situation here for Rondale Moore, but we'll see. Now let's go over the depth chart. This is what I want to go over because I didn't talk about other players they have on this defense. And I really want to go over that. So we'll go over the offense first. Obviously, J.J. McCarthy. I'm going to end the video off with J.J. McCarthy. Let's just start off there. Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. Ty Chandler is also not bad to be your RB3. This is amazing and underrated, I would say, running back room. And then obviously the wide receiver core. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Rondale Moore, Ty Felton, Jalen Naylor. That's a lot of depth. That is an absurd amount of depth on this team. And you can't forget tight end TJ Hawkinson, who I believe is a top 5-ish tight end in the league. So we don't really have to go over too much about Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and Justin Jefferson. I think we all know who they are. Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the league. Maybe you think it's Jamar Chase. I still think it's Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison has proven to be one of the best wide receiver 2s in the league. And I think Jalen Naylor is a pretty good, solid wide receiver 3. But I like Ty Felton out of Maryland to maybe take this wide receiver 3 spot. I don't know if it'll be this year, in year 1, but eventually I think Ty Felton could definitely take this job. CJ Ham, very good fullback. And then we already went over the offensive line. Christian Darrisaw, Donovan Jackson, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, and Brian O'Neill. This is such an elite offensive line. This, at the absolute worst, will be a top 5 offensive line. At the absolute worst. Do you understand what I'm saying? At the absolute worst, this is a top 5 offensive line. I have high hopes for this offensive line. Now let's go to the defense. Jonathan Allen, Harrison Phillips, Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Grenard, who had a career year last year, Ivan Pace Jr., Blake Cashman, absolute stud. Andrew Van Ginkel had a career year last year. Dallas Turner, if you guys have been subscribed to me or following me for however long you have, if you guys know, this was my top defensive player in last year's draft, in the 2024 NFL draft. I compared him to Will Anderson Jr. Didn't really play too much in year 1 just because of the guys in front of him. Pretty stacked, honestly. But I'm hoping to see more of Dallas Turner. I have really high hopes for this guy in year 2. I hope he can have that breakout year. I'm very high on him. And then we got Josh Metellus. This guy plays like every single position for this team. A lot of Vikings fans are really high on this guy. I think they drafted him in like the 6th round. Absolute steal. This guy is a stud. Then you got future Hall of Famer here, Harrison Smith. I obviously went over the DB room, Byron Murphy, Mekhi Blackman, Isaiah Rodgers. And then obviously we got to talk about Metellus and Harrison Smith in the secondary. And then they signed Theo Jackson. I think a lot of Vikings fans have some optimism about him. Even like other, backups on the like second stringers. I know Jalen Redmond, a lot of Vikings fans have optimism about him. So this is an insanely deep roster, especially on defense, man. And I think this is going to be a top 5 defense, top 10 at worst. But if I was projecting it, I think this is a top 3 defense, honestly. That's just me projecting. But I have very high hopes for this defense. Hey, man, let's end the video off like this. Let's talk about J.J. McCarthy, because this seems to be the biggest question on this team. A lot of people saying, he hasn't proven himself. He's a rookie. He's never thrown a snap in the NFL besides preseason. Why does that matter? I mean, we're projecting at the end of the day. It's called a projection. We do this all the time with rookies. We make these ESPN graphics, Cam Ward to the Titans. Even, you're seeing, even for non-quarterbacks, you're seeing, ESPN graphics of Luther Burden in a jersey with DJ Moore and fucking Rome Odunze calling it the best wide receiver core in the entire league. Luther Burden hasn't proven shit in the NFL. I'm not high on Luther Burden, by the way. You guys know if you guys watch my mock draft videos. But people do this all the time. Teams do this all the time. And it's just very dumb, in my opinion, because you're projecting. Like, you're not, that's what it is. And, when people do this shit where they're like, he hasn't played a snap in the NFL, I just think it's very dumb. Because you're projecting what this guy is going to be, and that's what it is. But anyways, let's talk about J.J. McCarthy. I want to go back to the draft process first, because I wasn't the highest on J.J. McCarthy, but I wasn't as low as people were on him. If I can find a clip, I'll try to put it in the video, but if I can't, I'll just talk about it briefly. I said basically what I said was J.J. McCarthy will be an extremely successful quarterback in the right system. What are the Minnesota Vikings? The Minnesota Vikings are absolutely that right system, Kevin O'Connell's offense, I think it's very QB friendly, similar to Michigan's. It's just timing, quick reads, play action, and obviously we talked about he's going to be under one of the best offensive lines in the league, if not the best. And then you got to talk about the elite weapons around him: Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson. I believe they're going to have a strong running game with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. But I will say it is worth noting that he did tear his meniscus. But what did he get out of that? He got a year to sit behind Sam Darnold. And what do we see with rookie QBs? Typically, when they sit 1 year, they don't really look as bad in their rookie season. Technically not their rookie season, but their first season actually being the starting quarterback. That's what we've seen historically. But basically, to end this video, man, I'm projecting J.J. McCarthy. Like I said, a lot of this is projections for the season. That's what it is. And I don't think a lot of people really realize that's what it is. But I'm projecting J.J. McCarthy, man. I think he's going to be a top 15 quarterback. I think there's no way, man. You see Brock Purdy. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of, how Brock Purdy in his first season was a very, controversial-ish quarterback. I think that's what you're going to see with J.J. McCarthy. Vikings fans are going to love him. And then everybody else is sort of going to hate him because they're going to say his stacked team, right? Basically what I'm going over right now. His stacked team is the reason for his success and all this shit, and now you just see Brock Purdy getting that huge deal. I think that's what's going to happen with J.J. McCarthy, man. And I think he actually has a better team than that 49ers team. Definitely has a better offensive line. I think, he has the best wide receiver room. The best wide receiver in the league, not the best wide receiver room. The best wide receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson, one of the best wide receiver twos in Jordan Addison, one of the best tight ends. I think the defenses, a lot of people are not going to want to hear it, but I think it's very comparable to the 49ers. I'd probably give a slight edge to that 49ers team that did go to the Super Bowl. But, man, I think, and obviously Christian McCaffrey is miles better than Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. But basically, to conclude this video, the Vikings are my early pick to not only win the NFC North, but they're my pick to win the NFC, and they'll be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl in 2026, man. I'm fully bought into what Kwesi has done this offseason and who Kevin O'Connell has proven to be. And if you're not fully convinced after this video, then I didn't do a good enough job, man. If you don't know, man, just do your homework on who these Vikings players are. If you don't even know who Andrew Van Ginkel or Jonathan Grenard are, then you probably shouldn't be giving an opinion on this, man. And you didn't watch the Vikings at all last season. But shout out to the Vikings, man. I received a lot of love from Vikings fans for this tweet, and I basically wanted to make a video giving my case, man. I hope I did a good enough job, and if you're new, make sure you like and subscribe if you really, really liked it. But, man, that's my case for the Minnesota Vikings being the most complete team in the NFL. I hope you stuck around this far, but I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.